Indiana County 911. My brother's gone. Can you be a little more specific, sir? He took my brother. Who took him? I don't know who took him. I don't know what. Sir, take a breath. Explain to me what happened.
And I looked out and there was this big red blinking UFO.
I can just say this. Something's going on in the woods. Something's going on.
They're not dogs, they're not coyotes. What could it be, right?
I had an encounter with a skunk ape, and it completely altered the course of my life.
I found a skull. I think you guys are going to want to come film this.
Put him out.
I just see it.
Sightings of a UFO hovering over a barn.
Millie woke up from a dream, and when I went into the bedroom, she said there's a monster on the wall.
They saw that the creature had run through a barbed wire fence, that they were able to obtain hairs. They sent the hairs to their lab, and it came back as an unknown creature.
Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin.
What is up, Bizarrites, and welcome back to the most bizarre show on the internet. I am the one that a few people refer to as Shane Squatch. And over here next to me, I have the one, the only, the big bad boo daddy, Sir Orin Felix himself. With a great intro.
The spank got me again.
I'm going to get you every time with that spank. Look out, man. Gripping daddy?
That's what she said.
Dude, I got rid of that off the board. That was one of the OGs that we were using for a hot minute back when Jenny was on the show. That hasn't made a rotation in a hot minute. It's been over a year, I think.
Well, you might have to put it back in the rotation now.
I might have to.
Maybe out of retirement.
I'll bring it up in the next couple episodes, and people are not expecting it.
There you go. Pull that one out of the rafters. Unretire the jersey.
Exactly. So, hopping into what we're going to hop into today, a little bit different than what we usually do, but I wanted to be able to address this before it becomes not topical. For anybody that's following paranormal news, this is kind of a big thing, I guess, kind of going with the folklore of it. But again, it's not going to be topical anymore by the time Bizarre Inquiries come, so I want to just hit it in the beginning of the show. So I'm going to bring up this article real quick so that everybody can see it. Just a couple of paragraphs we're going to throw in our comments, and then we will be hopping into this awesome show for you guys. So for anybody that's familiar with Annabelle, they know the whole track record of what goes on with this doll. And according to a recent report, paranormal investigator Dan Rivera has died, according to the New England Society of Psychic Research. I don't know why I was struggling on that word. God damn, I suck today. Rivera was the senior lead investigator for the organization, which announced his death in a July 14th Facebook post. It's with deepest sadness that investigator Tony Holmes, investigator Wade Kirby, and I share sudden passing of our close friend and partner Dan Rivera. Lead investigator Chris Corin wrote, "We are heartbroken and still processing this loss. Dan truly believed in sharing his experiences, educating people on the paranormal. His kindness and passion touched everyone who knew him. Thank you for your support and kind thoughts during this difficult time." According to the Pennsylvania State Police, a 54-year-old white male was found deceased by coworkers on July 14th in the hotel room in suburban township in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. This incident was ruled as a natural death. Police said nothing unusual or suspicious was observed at the scene, and an autopsy is pending. Ryan Poole, the host of Paranormal State, a series that ran on A&E from 2007 till 2011, shared news of Rivera's death on Facebook and remembered him as a loyal and caring friend. So before we go on with that article, do you want to throw in some of your views on this whole thing with, weird stuff happening around the Annabelle doll whenever somebody has it in their possession?
Yeah, so it's not something I know a whole lot about. Obviously, I've seen the Conjuring movies and whatever, but not to make light of this gentleman's passing, but I do think it's kind of funny and ironic that, like you said, this doll seems to just go along with death and misfortune for anybody who seems to possess it. But I really don't know enough to speak on it. You know how I kind of land on a lot of haunting and ghost type things. I'm not sure if I believe that things are haunted or possessed, if you will, in the way that a lot of people might think. But there's probably definitely something to it. If there's enough smoke with anything, there's probably some sort of fire there. So I know I probably didn't add a whole lot of insightful thoughts and information there, but what do you have to add to this one?
Well, I know it's a, I guess, unpopular opinion amongst normal paranormal enthusiasts, but not an unpopular opinion amongst paranormal researchers that the Warrens are typically full of shit. So when it comes to a lot of the old stuff with the Annabelle doll, like, you know, you take it with a grain of salt. You know, like maybe it's some of the folklore they based around it, just weird events kind of happen and they kind of folded it in. But the weird part about this one that I want to make a comment about was the fact that, like, the Warrens aren't around anymore. So it's either just a really, really weird fucking coincidence because the Annabelle doll has a track record, or maybe there's something to it. But either way, it's kind of interesting both ways, because, I mean, either there is a paranormal aspect to it and maybe the Warrens weren't lying as much as some people thought about the Annabelle doll, or on the flip side, it's just a really weird coincidence that it happened. But on the flip side, the guy being a paranormal investigator, not trying to make light of anybody's death, because of course it is always a sad thing, but on the flip side, you know, being a paranormal investigator, he became part of the Annabelle legend now. So, I mean, like, you know, in a weird, twisted way, like, he kind of made his mark on the paranormal, like, in his own way, and now he'll always be remembered as part of this Annabelle doll. So I guess, like, you know, if you're going to go out as a paranormal investigator, you know, it's not a bad way to go out, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's worse ways to go out, I suppose. And I guess kind of the last thing I'll throw in, apart from the whole, like, you know, haunting, possession, whatever aspect of this story, I mean, I do totally believe that it is possible to just like put so much intention into an object or a thing that kind of manifests and takes on its own life. I mean, we hear about, like, you know, poppets and homunculi and things like that, and all sorts of weird stuff that we've talked about on the show. So, you know, while I don't think that, you know, things are necessarily haunted or it's a, you know, possessed, cursed doll or whatever, I do think there is something to people putting their intention into anything, for that matter, whether that be, you know, an activity or inanimate object. And I think that could manifest itself in really weird ways. So, you know, maybe that's something that's going on here after decades of people's intention being put on this thing, even if it didn't, you know, originally have this haunting or attachment to it. We could have almost manufactured something like that at this point, you know?
I mean, even like the partial placebo effect to it too, of like, you know, it's almost like if somebody tells you you're going to die, like you're going to be super cautious to the point where you might end up slipping up. So if you have this doll that is known to have death around it, you know, maybe you might slip being overcautious or something like that. Not saying that that was the case that happened with this. Again, just really, really weird circumstances, but just in general, when people are being overcautious of something, they tend to end up messing up in another way, and then it ends up becoming part of it. So I'm saying, like, you know, with this guy, at least, like I said, a natural death, they're still got to do the autopsy. Maybe it was a heart attack, something like that. But if it was a heart attack, I mean, maybe there was a possibility that this guy got so wrapped up that he was like, you know, kind of scared traveling with this thing because he knew in the back of his mind that death comes with this thing. And he ended up like stressing himself out to the point of giving himself a heart attack because he was worried that something was going to happen with this doll. You know, that's kind of how I meant it.
Almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point.
Yeah, it's like a placebo effect, you know?
Yeah, for sure. All right, so kind of moving on, the only other piece of news and information we've got for you guys this week is
that plays off well with this.
Do what?
I said that plays off well with what we were just talking about.
Absolutely. So kind of piggybacking off of it, our next episode of Bizarre Inquiries, our YouTube live show, will be August the 7th. That's a Thursday. It's going to be around 7:15 Eastern time on the Open Minds Media YouTube channel. So you guys be sure to submit questions or articles or videos or anything that you want us to inquire about. And also, if you guys want to get up with us for any other reason, Shayn, tell them how they can do that.
First and foremost, you guys can email us at bizarreencounters@outlook.com, or you guys can call or text the hotline, whatever happens to be easier. And that number is 313-364-1551. And of course, anywhere you find us on social media, you guys are more than welcome to get a hold of us there too.
And as always, all this shit we've mentioned is in the link tree in the show description.
So, hopping into today's topic, and just to give a little bit of a forewarning for everybody, I brought up that initial article, but currently I am experiencing some monitor issues as far as one of the power cords, my monitor went out. So for anybody that's watching the live, I won't be able to bring up videos, pictures, and stuff like that today, so I apologize in advance. But getting into today's topic, I'm going to give it over to Orin and let him let you guys know what we're getting into today.
All right, so we've done a lot of folklore type stuff recently, you know, different legends and things of that nature. It's been a while since we've done like just an old school cryptid, so I figured it was about time to change that. So today we are going to talk about the Grafton Monster.
What the hell is even that?
I'm glad you asked.
Please inform me.
Do you have anything to add before we get into what the hell is the Grafton Monster?
Come on!
on, you monster!
That's about it. That's all I got for now.
Okay. All right. So getting started here. The Grafton Monster, which was also known as the Beast of Grafton or the Headless Horror, is a large humanoid type creature. It was reported in the small town of Grafton, West Virginia during the summer of 1964. And allegedly this creature is like 7 to 9 feet tall and 4 feet wide. So that's, pretty thick boy.
What the heck?
Fucking choking it up over there, man.
Yeah, so it's like half as wide as it is tall.
That's like a hard thing to imagine, just in general.
Yeah.
Like, how often do you come across something that's like a humanoid that's wider than it is tall?
Well, I don't know. In my college years, I came across some late night people like that coming out of bars and whatnot. Anyway,
I just imagine them making the sound of the Mario bricks.
I mean, I was talking about more like young co-eds, but anyway.
Oh, fair enough.
on.
It goes both ways. They both make the same sounds.
Moving on. So the most interesting aspect of this creature is the fact that it was reported as having no discernible head. But it should kind of be noted that a lot of these initial reports were unclear as to whether the creature really didn't have a head or if its head was kind of like situated more on its shoulders or chest and it just didn't have like a neck.
You sure about that?
You sure about that head?
I am not.
I'm not sure about that head.
But anyway, the creature was also said to have, quote, white seal-like skin and a very deep bellow being heard for miles. So the most notable sighting of the Grafton Monster occurred on June 16th of 1964. And on that night at about 11 o'clock p.m., there was a young news reporter for the Grafton Daily Sentinel newspaper. And his name was Robert Cockrell. And he was, Cockrell.
Sorry, we always have such great names when we do any type of cryptid report. That must be part of the thing, that in order to submit a really solid cryptid report that's going to be remembered, you have to have a ridiculous name. And if you don't, you better go get that shit changed. If you're John Smith, you better get your name changed before you report the shit.
Well, old Cockrell here, he was driving home from the newspaper's office. And he was driving along a road that was called Riverside Drive. And this road ran parallel to the Tygart River, spelled Tygart.
Tygart.
And as he... Tygart.
It's kind of like yogurt,
and,
but a tiger. Tygart.
Like the Tygart King.
It's striped. Yeah. It's striped yogurt. It's Tygart.
So as he was driving along, he saw what he called, quote, a huge white obstruction. And it was standing on like the right-hand shoulder of the road. And what's kind of interesting is this was the side of the road that ran adjacent to the river. And there was also like an old abandoned rock quarry on that side of the road. So remember both those pieces of information.
Can we already throw in the fact that we already have a roadside crossing next to a river? We have like the typical motifs. The only thing we're missing here now is a couple's makeout spot, which maybe we'll hit farther. And who maybe there's
not
one.
necessarily, but we're going to get into some of that type of stuff in theories and conclusions and all that good stuff. So keep that on the back burner. But anyway, so Robert Cockrell said that this entity, creature, whatever you want to call it, appeared to, quote, be made entirely of muscle, and it remained motionless while he drove by. And he also reported that there was a, quote, low whistling noise that was being emitted from further away in the direction of the river. And also remember that.
I was trying to do the whistling noise.
I bet that's exactly what it sounded like.
That's exactly what it sounded like.
All right, so I had to kind of do the breaks in weird places here because this is a shorter one, but...
Well, I guess I'll make a comment about this whole thing. Right off the bat, dude, if I saw some giant creature just chilling on the side of the road, not moving, like maybe like the ideas are different because of the time, but I would assume that was like a glitch in the Matrix at first until this thing started moving. Because, with most of these creature sightings, like how often do you really hear ones of it just standing still, especially with these roadside sightings? Like maybe if you hear about ones where people are in the woods and something's watching them from a distance, like that's one thing. But typically with these roadside sightings, it's very uncommon that you hear about something standing still. Usually it'll like quickly sink back. It'll continue trying to cross the road real quick. Like it's not very common that you see something just
like
pause in place.
The road.
Like you just pause in place. I mean, that maybe people would be better off that way. Maybe this is something that you see with Sasquatch, but when Sasquatch because and you just don't see it, Because I mean, honestly, other than this thing being of giant size, if this thing was a bit smaller and it just stood still at like the wood line, like I bet you this guy would have passed right over it and not even seen this damn thing.
Yeah, and we're going to get into kind of some of the more down to earth theories on what people speculated this thing could be. But yeah, it is very odd as far as just the behavior of this thing. Because like you said, most of the time these creatures are crossing the road, or, you know, you see them leaning around a tree or something like that. But yeah, just kind of standing there on the side of the road, hanging out, being motionless. That's definitely the first encounter like this that I've come across. And, you know, we've hit all the big cryptids at this point. So,
and we also have to make reference to the fact that, one, this is in Appalachia. Two, a rock quarry down the street. I don't know if this was the first sighting. I don't know if there's a direct link to that, but obviously, you know, you're messing with the mountains in Appalachia. You're digging up the grounds in Appalachia. And I mean, it seems like weird stuff starts to happen.
On the back burner. We're going to talk about that. That's kind of going to be our come home point, if you will. So keep that one on the back.
You left me a trail and you're expecting me not to follow it, man. I'm sorry. That's my job here. That's what I'm supposed to do.
If you had read the notes, you would have known we're going to talk about it.
I can't. The other monitor isn't up.
No, I sent them to you last night. You could have.
Well, sometimes I just like to lay down some clues so that we get people excited about the end of the show, you know? Sometimes I do things on purpose and I just act like I don't.
I think that's exactly what's going on here.
What the heck?
Hold on tight, guys. Bizarre Encounters will be right back after this brief commercial break.
But in the meantime, don't forget to follow Bizarre Encounters on Instagram and Facebook for show updates and the weekly live schedules. Also, don't forget to check out Open Minds Media on YouTube and TikTok and tap that bell icon while you're there to get notified anytime we go live. And if you'd like to join the discussion with like-minded individuals, become a member of the OMM Discord community today.
Links are available off of the link tree down in the show description. And now back to the show.
All right. So after Robert Cockrell drove past this thing, he rushed home and he called his friends Jerry Morse and Jim Moser. And he told them about his sighting. And he asked if they would like return to the scene with him so they could like investigate further. And Cockrell and his friends, when they got there, they didn't find any physical evidence of the creature, but they did say that the grass where it like allegedly was standing looked like it was trampled down. And this, I think, is kind of interesting. Cockrell claimed that the kind of low whistling noise that he heard, it was still persistent, but it also, quote, followed them as they investigated. So I think that's pretty cool. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I don't even know where to exactly go with this thought yet, but I'm starting to get like alien vibes in the aspect of like the humming sound. Like we'll have to get into like the further sightings before maybe I can kind of put a little bit more of like a note on this, but like this thing stopping on the side of the road, not moving, making this humming noise and then disappearing. Like, could it have theoretically been possible that this thing was some type of like organic extraterrestrial type of craft possibly that happened to have landed on the ground and this guy just saw it in maybe not the context that it was supposed to be seen in, you know, like looking at this thing kind of flattened Latin on the ground. Like, could this have been like one of the like jellyfish type things that but like lower to the ground and possibly like sucked in? Like, I don't know, like the humming sound, I'm just getting like UFO or like Fae vibes, but I don't know how to quite place the idea yet until I get some more information.
We're going to come back to kind of extraterrestrial type vibes and suggestions when we get kind of more into the thoughts and theories. So maybe at that point, you'll have a little bit more information to kind of flush out some of those ideas. So
it was a gray berserker. They're trying out a new type of gray. You know, we have the small grays, we have the big grays. We needed just a giant muscle, fuck them up, drop it into an area and just take everybody out type of gray. So this was the first attempt at a berserker gray. And obviously it didn't go well, so they just didn't do much with it. Or maybe it worked on different planets. They took this thing to other planets, said it won't work with the humans.
It was like the boss battle gray.
It was the boss battle gray, exactly. That's why it was lagging out. They hadn't actually made it to the boss level yet, so it wasn't activated yet. That's why it was just standing still. They had to beat the level first, but they skipped a level. That's what happened.
Okay. All right. So before we jump in, we just had a comment pop up in the chat that is super cool. I've got to share from VZSSV8. He said, "Good day from Australia, guys. Super stoked to catch a live." So thank you so much, whoever VZSSV8 is. I can't believe we have anybody in Australia who cares to listen to this bullshit, but that's a great honor. And thank you so much for listening and joining in on the chat.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate it. And actually, I should show you the statistics more. Believe it or not, our biggest following comes from Canada. We usually stay within like the top 50 in Canada. Like we got some good numbers in the US, Canada, Australia, and England, obviously, because they're English-speaking countries. And then weirdly enough, we stay within the top 50 in Israel. Tell me how that makes any sense.
Well, I cannot get over the fact we have Aussies listening to us. So that's got to be like a whole other time zone. I can't even imagine what time it is.
I think it's early morning for them because I've done a couple shows with a couple people in Australia, and I'm pretty sure that like our right now is like early morning for him. So props to you, man, for catching us early in the morning. We appreciate it. We appreciate you deciding to have us as your first podcast for the day, possibly.
No, that's awesome. And while we're shouting out people in the chat, our good buddy Mans / Blood Chugger, whatever he's going by on whatever platform he's on, he's in the chat as always. So thanks for joining us again tonight. Always a pleasure to have you join us as well.
Good old Blood Sugar, with the first post being my boys. my boy.
My boys.
My boy Blood Sugar.
All right. So after those shout outs, we'll jump back into the material. And this is going to be kind of starting in the aftermath of the sightings. So the following morning, which would have been June 17th, Robert Cockrell told his editor at the Grafton Daily Sentinel about the sighting that he had. And the editor, of course, was like initially skeptical about this whole thing.
That was his response.
Pretty much. But later in the day, he kind of reconsidered, and he suggested that Cockrell write like the short article about his sighting to appear in the next day's newspaper. Well, by the end of the day, news of this sighting had like spread all over town. I've heard from multiple sources that like his friends Jerry Morse and Jim Moser kind of like helped spread this story around the town. So by that evening, there was like a large group of local residents, mostly like teenagers and young adults, who formed monster hunting parties to go out and kind of look for this creature. And several members of these monster hunting parties actually reported seeing a creature like this or the same one. And it's kind of interesting. A lot of the sightings actually happened near this Tigert River and the rock quarry. So Robert Cockrell, he talked to a lot of these people and interviewed them and compiled a list of these sightings. And he included them in the article that he submitted to his editor. And notice I said submitted, and we're going to talk about that here again in a second.
I just wanted to make a quick comment again to our chat over here. He says he's listened to all of our shows. So again, we appreciate it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So we're going to fast forward to the next morning, which would have been June 18th. And on that morning, a heavily edited version of Cockrell's article appeared in the Grafton Daily Sentinel.
What the heck?
That's what he was thinking when he saw it.
Yeah. And the title of the article was, quote, "Teenage Monster Hunting Parties, Latest Activity on Grafton Scene." And due to kind of the further exposure that this article provided, that night, like even more locals showed up and gathered for these monster hunting parties.
Come on, you monster!
Okay. And so this led to like this sense of like mounting hysteria and like public safety concerns. So members of the West Virginia State Police, the Taylor County Sheriff's Department, and the Grafton Police Department were dispatched to this kind of stretch of road along Riverside Drive where a lot of these monster hunting parties kind of congregated. But it seemed like the law enforcement agencies were like really uninterested in actually like investigating the sightings or like basically giving any stock to this whatsoever. And they were basically there for like crowd control and just to direct traffic. So the following morning, which would have been June 19th, another heavily edited follow-up article appeared. in the Grafton Daily Sentinel. This one was also originally written by Cockrell, but it was edited in a way that like largely discredited the witnesses, and it dismissed, a lot of the sightings as like cases of misidentification. And the title of the article was "Monster, quote unquote, result of spring fever and wild imagination." So this has led some people to kind of conclude that there was some sort of cover up going on, that, you know, all these people had these pretty credible sightings for all intents and purposes. And then, you know, just this small town local media did all they could to kind of suppress this information.
Was this getting talked about on like a national scale, or did it seem like it just kept like relatively local, like within like the state?
So, you know, a lot of these stories we talk about, whether it be like Flatwoods or things like that, they do seem like they catch on more in the national media. This, I didn't see where it kind of hit the national news as much as some others. So it seemed like it was kind of more of a regional, kind of hyper-specific geographical area.
Was this, just out of curiosity, because you always end up looking this stuff up, I'm sure, when you do a lot of this research, was there any like military bases or anything like that nearby that anybody knew about?
Not military bases per se, but as we're going to get into a little bit later, this is like really close to Flatwoods and where all that happened. And it's in just like kind of that sweet spot in West Virginia where all this weird stuff happens. There's a lot of like national parks and wildlife management areas. So not necessarily military installations, but a lot of, you know, kind of weird high strangeness type places that we talk about a lot on the show.
I mean, even theoretically, like science labs, like I know it sounds like a super sci-fi concept, but if you see like this big berserker like humanoid, could it have been some type of like science experiment gone wrong? Like, for lack of a better term, like a Incredible Hulk type situation, maybe, you know, where like they were trying to create some type of maybe like super soldier, which has obviously been something that's been talked about forever. And the reason why it looked like it was all muscle is because maybe the experiment didn't go wrong, and they went wrong because they were trying to create like more muscle, but in turn this thing completely took over muscle, and that could be why there's this huge government cover up, if that is definitely the case. I mean, I know it sounds a little bit ridiculous, but I mean, it definitely feel like there would be some trial and error when it comes to super soldier serums, and assumably there are going to be a few that are probably going to blow people up a bit too much.
Well, I mean, even if it's not full on like super soldier, I mean, it definitely could have been some sort of government or scientific experiment gone wrong. So, I mean, that wasn't a theory that I saw presented in any of my research, but I mean, at the time period and kind of the location, it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world, you know?
I mean, it may not even necessarily be like a human, because I mean, we know that obviously a lot of governments have tried to experiment with different types of animals, trying to see what they could possibly do with different types of animals. So, I mean, kind of looking at the physique of this thing being wide, having the head possibly sunk into the shoulders type of thing. I mean, could it have been possible that they were running some type of weird experiments on like a gorilla rather than like a humanoid? Because that's like the closest thing that I can kind of think of that kind of has this like shape of like the Grafton Monster, is, you know, maybe some experiments on some type of gorilla or something, you know?
I mean, or taking it a step further, at that point, it could have been some sort of hybrid type situation, and it wasn't even like they were experimenting on some known creature. I mean, they could have been doing some Ripley alien shit and just like cooking up something brand new.
Dude, I'm always saying on the show, man, if they were openly saying that we're able to clone sheep during the 90s, like,
yeah,
there has to be a build up to that, and imagine where it is now.
Well, like 20 years before that, they could do it.
Yeah, there's no way in fuck that they're just going to discover it and instantly go and tell everybody. Like, I guarantee you, by the time they were telling people of the public that they could clone sheeps, they were probably onto way more complex things by then. Like, at least trying to probably at least do like different types of apes and chimps and stuff like that on their way to humans.
Well, and if they were doing that shit in the 90s, I mean, what are they doing now?
I mean, in a weird way, I mean, with like invert, or what's the name of that stuff, where they will try to like put the sperm inside of another person, and they try to like, and
that's
something
called sex, Shane.
No. It's something insemination, where they will like take
artificial insemination.
Yeah, there it is, artificial insemination. I mean, in a weird way, like that kind of seems like it's kind of running the precipice of clone technology to begin with. I mean, you basically are able to just. Well, I guess it depends on where you're viewing it. If you're starting from scratch, that you're creating the egg and you're creating the sperm, then it's one thing. But if you're viewing cloning as possibly like taking a clone or an egg and then taking a sperm and putting them together or somewhere else and then manipulating that into multiple things, I mean, like I said, that's already side tangenting human cloning technology, in my opinion.
So on a side note, I think this is officially the highest number of times we said sperm in an episode.
We need a sperm counter.
Yeah, we do.
Actually, maybe
the
not.
Sperm Olympics.
I was going to say, when we did the Sperm Olympics.
Sperm more in this episode than in the Sperm Olympics one.
I think we're beating it now, though, because we're making reference to the Sperm Olympics.
I bet you're beating it now. I bet you are. You're trying to train for the Sperm Olympics.
You know what's funny was I was literally about to throw a soundboard on that was, I'm about to bust with Hank Hill, and I didn't, and I wish I would have now.
No, you just never know when you're going to need to bust.
I gave it up for a really good one that I'm still holding on to. Just, you got to wait for it.
Okay.
I might bust waiting for it. Hold your sperm in. We apologize, guys, for the interference, but we will be right back. And now back to the show.
All right. So kind of jumping back in, this second heavily edited article that Robert Cockrell wrote, it kind of de-escalated a lot of the public tension that was going on in the area, but it kind of did bring more light to this situation, and people did come forward, and in total more than 20 additional sightings were reported of a very similar creature, but no physical evidence was ever discovered. So this kind of brings us right into the thoughts and theories section, and kind of one of the most outlandish ones I saw, and this is like Kentucky meat shower level of stupidity. Somebody said that the creature could have been an escaped polar bear, but nobody gave like a good reason for why there would be a polar bear in Grafton in the 60s or how it got there. So
what the hell is even that?
Yeah, that's just kind of an oddball one. And while we're talking about the batshit stupid ones,
well, actually, before you get into that, I want to make a quick reference to something before we get too far out. Talk about like what's honestly better in this situation. So they report on something, and you obviously see how much this stuff gets. Just even the news itself starting to kind of make their own story out of it. Like I always make reference to the Hopkinsville goblins turning into little green men, shit like that. So when it comes to like these reports, is it better that the mainstream news reports on it and that people come up and tell their stories? Because you get two things with that. Either one, you have people more comfortable where they will come and tell their encounters that they honestly had. Or on the flip side, you also have people that want to become part of the story, so though they start coming up with stories to become part of it. So it's like, if you're trying to get the factual information, is it better to put out the story or just to keep to yourself? Because if you don't put out the story, then you might get more reports, and you know that you can really start to look at details in that because they don't have any other previous reference. But on the other side, like, are those people even going to report it if there isn't already like a paradigm for this thing existing? Like, this is one of those back and forths I go with in my head all the time. Yeah. It's like, you wouldn't get the reports, but on the flip side, people make shit up because they want to be part of the news report now. So it's like, what's better, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword, but you know, I would lean towards, especially with these older cases, like it's different now with like the internet and everybody having a phone in their pocket and AI and all this current bullshit. But like back then, I would certainly think that if you saw this in your local, you know, small town newspaper and you had seen something similar, it would make you more likely to report it. So granted, yeah, you're always going to have attention seekers and weirdos and things like that pop up around anything like this. But I would think, especially in these older cases, having the reports published probably did more good than harm. But
besides the reporters themselves taking their own liberties on a lot of aspects of things, like prime example right here, the guy who's firsthand with this shit is like writing the reports on it, and they just do their own liberty to it. You know, like even the Hopkinsville goblins, you know, they spin it to make them look crazy. So it's like, yeah, the story gets out, but on the flip side, it's like they make the person that had the initial counter look even more crazy. So it's almost like that whole idea about like, if you're reporting it, the people that are interested are going to check it out. But on the flip side, if you report it, most of the time people get made a joke. So then anybody that may have been like, oh, that's a little bit something weird, they instantly have that in the back of their mind of like, oh, this is just the news said it was just a bunch of people that, you know, were just having fun out in the woods. Like, oh, it was a hoax. It was this, you know, because it's like the newspapers, like for this one, we'll do those prime stories where it's like, it'll have like the headline where it feels like it explains the whole thing, but then you look into the rest of it and you realize that it doesn't explain it. But you know that even back in the day, just like now, there's a lot of people that are just reading headlines and they're basing all their information off of that, and they're not actually reading the article.
Well, yeah, I mean, the media has always been about controlling narratives. And as bad as shit like that is nowadays, I mean, just look at this situation here that happened in the 60s. I mean, basically this small town local newspaper was totally controlling the narrative and the information that got out to the public and heavily censoring and editing everything that went out. So, I mean, we talked about in our last episode about, nothing new under the sun, and that there's always going to be this kind of like control factor that goes on in things like this. And I mean, this is very similar as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if something on such a small scale as this is being so heavily edited and controlled, I mean, it's kind of hard to take anything seriously at that point.
Or even on the flip side, like these small towns, trying to bring in like tourists too. You never know who could possibly be involved with this. Like there's this Christmas movie. I can't remember what the hell the name of it is offhand, but you've seen 8 Mile before, right?
With Marshall Mathers?
Yeah. So,
absolutely.
The guy who plays Ronnie, he's in a bunch of movies. He plays like the Iceman in the Iceman and stuff. I forget that actor's name.
Man, I haven't seen that movie in like 15 years.
But anyways, he plays the main guy in it. And the whole premise of this movie is that the guy lives in a small town. He runs this small shop. He gets drunk one night and he puts on this like ghillie suit and like runs around the town. So then the entire town starts thinking that there's like Sasquatch sightings. So there starts becoming like an economy in the town for
this is
Sasquatch.
A Christmas movie?
Yeah, it's a Christmas movie. So there's like an economy in the town for like Sasquatch. And this guy gets to this point where he's just like, well, I know this is all a hoax, but my entire town is doing a lot better because of this. So like, how do I deal with this situation? Like, I feel like there's a lot of that with some of these like old towns, that it's either one, maybe the town may have been in on it and they wanted to kind of get some tourist dollars in, especially back in the day. Not saying it's the case with this one, because this didn't get blown up that way, but some of the other stories. And on the other side, somebody that may have done something on accident, people thought it was something else. They're just like, fuck, now I'm kind of stuck doing this because the entire town's kind of weirdly relying on me to do this now. So I'm gonna see if I can find the name of that movie, by the way.
Okay. But I've kind of got 2 thoughts on that sort of thing. Number one, if you'll remember when we talked about our recent
Pottersville
Spaceman. What is it?
It's called Pottersville. Sorry.
Okay.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
look it up.
I'll show you the cover real quick. I'll bring it up on screen.
Okay. But anyway, when we talked about the Solway Firth Spaceman.
Yeah, if anybody wants to check it out, it's a cute little Sasquatch Christmas movie. I found it one last year on accident, but it's worth watching at least once. But the concept's interesting, but it's a good movie.
Never have I ever heard of that. But anyway,
you wouldn't know it was a Sasquatch movie from the cover. Clearly, it just looks like a fucking Christmas movie. But
But when we were talking about the Solway Firth Spaceman, there's this idea that this weird thing happened to this guy, and then he probably figured out that it was totally explainable. But at that point, this whole mythology had kind of built up around the sighting, and he had become like the spaceman photograph guy. And how do you go back from being the spaceman photograph guy? I think that's kind of what you're talking about here. Like, once these small towns kind of latch on to these legends, I mean, no offense meant, but I mean, a lot of these small towns, these monster sightings are pretty much the only thing they're known for. So if you don't have that, then, what are you? And kind of the other thing I'll say,
somebody shows up with a costume to the mayor, and the mayor's just like, we never saw anything, burn it.
But on the other side of that coin, I mean, I think some of these towns could take advantage of these stories more so, because last year when we were on our way up to Ohio for Monster Fest, we stopped in Point Pleasant. Mm-hmm. And I felt like there's not enough Mothman stuff there. Like, there's the museum, there's the shiny hiney that you can rub, but like, I would think that it should be on like every corner. They should like beat you over the head and molest you with Mothman when you're in Point Pleasant. And
I want to see a Mothman figure mannequin stripping on every single light post all through Point Pleasant. If there's not a big bootied Mothman riding that pole down, then I'm not interested.
Yeah, but what I was going to say, like, there's not as much Mothman in Point Pleasant as I was expecting. So, like, I think, again, double-edged sword, a lot of these towns probably latch onto these legends because it's a big source of income and, notoriety. But at the same time, I mean, I think a lot of these towns could take more advantage of it. Point Pleasant being a perfect example. So,
do you know what's weird is that, again, being a Michigander, Frankenmuth, for anybody that's from Michigan, I guarantee you know what Frankenmuth is, but there was a Sasquatch sighting there, I think about 10 years ago now, where there was like a river crossing sighting, and it wasn't anything like really super duper crazy. I mean, some good footage, whatever. But, considering that it's like, they've kind of made it into somewhat of a local thing. Like you said, Point Pleasant, you're not seeing Mothman everywhere. But Frankenmuth, they had this just very minuscule Sasquatch sighting, and every single store you go into, they have a full Sasquatch section set up now. So it's just it's funny that it's like a little thing, and you try to blow it up where every single store has these Sasquatch things in it, and then you have this legendary cryptid sighting, and you're like, here's a museum and a statue.
Yeah. I mean, I was expecting to just be overwhelmed when we went to Point Pleasant, and it's super cool. Like anybody who has the opportunity should go. I'm absolutely not trying to talk shit about Point Pleasant. The museum's super cool. I mean, the Shiny Heinie's awesome, but I was expecting the main drag there to just be bar after bar with Mothman shit, and it wasn't.
Is there at least one Mothman themed bar? Because if not, I'll be very sad. Or at least does one of the bars have a Mothman themed brew that's their main beer at least? So
there is this pizzeria that used to be on the main drag there where the museum and everything is, and they have a Mothman pizza, and it's pretty cool. So, but they changed locations a few years ago, and now they're a few miles away from the museum and everything. So it's probably a much nicer, larger building than they were in before, but it's not right there with everything. But we definitely went there. We didn't get the Mothman pizza.
Do they have an ale?
A few beers. Do what?
Do they have a Mothman ale?
No, it's just a regular bar.
Talk about a super sad missed opportunity, man. There's a lot of places that aren't in Point Pleasant that are doing Mothman beers. There has to be some local brewery in Point Pleasant that is doing a Mothman beer. And if there's not, here's some inspiration. Please make a Mothman beer that is straight out of Point Pleasant, because it shouldn't be coming from anywhere else.
Straight out of Point Pleasant.
Straight out of Point Pleasant. Straight out of Point Pleasant. I'm the motherfucking Mothman. Rub my ass. And I don't know where to go after that. Sorry, everybody.
This one has gone sufficiently off the fucking rails. We haven't got this unhinged in a minute.
Hey, it was worth it. It was fun. We got to talk about the Mothman's ass, and that's always a plus.
All right, well, I'm going to go get another beer, and we can take a commercial break here.
And hop back into theory since I cut you off halfway through. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back with that bizarre stuff you crave. But just a quick reminder.
If you're interested in snagging some gear from this show, inquiries of our reality, or any of your favorite creatures or topics, hop on over to the Open Minds Media merch store for a wide range of designs with new drops regularly, and t-shirts for the low price of just $15.68. Wow, that's oddly specific, plus shipping.
The link for that is available down in the show description. And we are back with the high strangeness. Let's get back into it.
All right. So now that we've discussed Shiny Heinies and small town Appalachian economics and business opportunities, we're going to get back into thoughts and theories.
I was also narrating everything that you were doing on the break for all the live listeners, just in case you were wondering.
Okay.
So, it's a throw that
probably enthralling radio/television.
Oh, the word allotments got used quite frequently. So
nice. So, all right. So jumping back in. Piggybacking off of the polar bear theory, another theory that was thrown out there was that the monster was actually, quote, an individual pushing a hand cart loaded high with boxes walking along Riverside Drive.
I think it may have also been a blue heron. I mean, if we're going with theories that crazy, there's probably a possibility it was just a blue heron. Maybe some ball lightning.
Sandhill crane.
Sandhill crane, ball lightning.
I feel like that's more believable. But another similar theory was that it could have been a local woman, and this one's pretty funny. This might be the most ridiculous one. A local woman dragging a white refrigerator along Riverside Drive.
So we got polar bears, we got a lady dragging a refrigerator by herself, and these are more realistic theories than the possibility of there just being something strange.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think the lady dragging the refrigerator theory is less likely than it was just some interdimensional monster.
Like, at a certain point, do you think that people that are trying to rationalize this shit will ever just sit back and realize how irrational their rationaling becomes?
But, you know, Shane, that's like something I've said on the show.
A fucking polar bear in West Virginia. Like, let's just say that for what it is.
In a lot of these instances, you know, when you have to say, okay, it was a meteor, and then this weird thing happened, and then this weird thing happened, at some point it becomes harder to believe that than just something kind of weird and out there and strange legitimately happened. And I think this is a perfect like example of that, and the links people will go to try to not believe something weird. Like
the whole polar bear thing.
What are the odds that it was a woman dragging a refrigerator? Like, that's so fucking stupid.
Like, even the polar bear thing. Like, polar bears, they have translucent hair. So the reason why they appear white is because of the reflection off the snow when people are taking pictures. You go to the zoo and you see them. Typically, they have the white fake snow setup. They get that reflection that comes off of that, and that's why they look so white. When you don't have them around white, they don't come off that color. They come off as more of like a grayish, dingy, like darkish kind of color. Not saying that they're going to come out like brown or anything like that, but, you know, if this guy was seeing like a polar bear, for example, I don't think he would have reported it as white. It would have been like a grayish brown, like a kind of like a dirty whitish color. Like, it wouldn't have been white. Like, for anybody that kind of like knows about polar bears and like what they visually look like I don't think that would be possible. You know, like just the explanation doesn't seem to line up unless you're like saying, oh, it's white, it must have been a polar bear.
Yeah, I mean, people have a frame of reference for a polar bear. If it was something like that, I feel like even in, you know, 1964, you wouldn't go to, it was this weird otherworldly thing with no head. So,
and I mean, again, even on the flip side, back then versus now, you feel like people would be are a little bit more connected with nature, you know, especially in these small towns and stuff. Like, people aren't gonna fuck up a bear back then. Maybe now, yes, people might fuck up a bear, but like back then, especially living in like West Virginia and shit, where they're familiar with animals, they're familiar with wildlife. Like, I don't think any of these good old boys are gonna fuck up a bear and think that a bear is something else.
Yeah, people know what a bear looks like. You might be like, hey, I saw this really weird white bear. But I don't think you'd be like, I saw this really weird headless abomination.
That's what
that was definitely not a polar bear.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I've never seen a polar bear that, you know, has its fucking head. It's just so fucking jacked that its head is just part of its body now. Like, I've never seen that. Apparently, this polar bear not only is hanging out in West Virginia, but he's also doing some lifts. Can't even turn his fucking head no more.
Or it was just the lady dragging the refrigerator.
Yeah, she's doing some lifting too, apparently. Holy shit.
Apparently, there's some jacked people in Grafton, West Virginia.
I mean, that's a monster all on its own if you got a lady that can drag a refrigerator on her own. I mean, different type of monster, but...
And no one asked to think why she was dragging the refrigerator?
Or to help, you know, considering it was the 60s. It's not like people are getting abducted off the side of the road. If you see a lady dragging a fridge, maybe get out and ask her if she needs some fucking help. Like, what's the context of that, you know? And it's like back in the day, you weren't just assuming that, you know, if you saw some lady dragging a fridge down the street that it's probably a crackhead because, you know, crack wasn't a thing back in the 60s. Nowadays, you just assume it was a crackhead, and yeah, you probably wouldn't get out of the car. Or a meth head. One of the two, and you just wouldn't get out of the car.
If I see anybody dragging a refrigerator down the road, I'm not stopping to help them, so I'm not going to cast too much judgment on that.
Yeah, fuck no. Next thing you know, you're going to be inside that refrigerator getting dragged down the road or being pushed down a ravine.
And we know there was a ravine there, so I mean, you can't be too careful.
Imagine the brute strength that they could do to you if they're dragging a fridge.
Yeah, for real. I'd rather deal with the headless monster.
Right.
Anyway, so jumping back in, some other people have suggested that the monster could have actually been, quote, the personification of the active imaginations of a number of teenagers, or as we kind of alluded to earlier, the result of spring fever and wild imaginations. However, Robert Cockrell remained adamant that what he saw was not a refrigerator, it was not a polar bear, it was some sort of supernatural entity. And he did further research after his sighting, and he actually discovered some similar sightings that occurred, one of them dating back to the 1950s. So on September the 21st of 1952, which would be roughly 12 years before the Grafton sighting, Yep, there you go. You're holding up a little Grafton
I didn't have
Monster.
a picture today, so I did have a mannequin, so I figured I'd show everybody a little Grafton Monster figure.
Live and in person. There
Live and
he
in
is.
person. You can hold it.
So anyway, as I was saying, 1952, about 12 years before the sighting, a resident of Buckley, West Virginia, reported seeing an entity that she described as, quote, a large, shiny white creature resembling a wash tub, end quote, that was flying through the air. So large, shiny white wash tub, that's kind of similar to this large, shiny white possibly refrigerator looking thing.
Hey, this goes into what I was saying earlier about the possibility of this thing being some type of, for lack of a better term, organic UFO type of thing. And it maybe would go with the humming that, maybe they just saw this thing landed on the ground and that wasn't its actual shape. Maybe it was kind of like condensed into itself. Like take a jellyfish and you throw it on land. It kind of creates this like little lump of itself, but as soon as it lifts back up, then it takes its full shape again, And maybe that could have been the case with this thing.
Yeah, and what's kind of interesting about this one is this sighting occurred only a few days after the Flatwoods Monster sighting, and it was only like 70 miles away from Flatwoods. So again, not anything super duper consistent with the Flatwoods sighting, but the proximity and the time frame make it kind of interesting to talk about nonetheless.
Maybe that's what the Grafton Monster or what the Flatwoods Monster was looking for. It was here in the woods looking for the Grafton Monster because they were like, fuck, our science experiment got out. We need to do something about that. We're going to send you down, Mrs. Spadehead, Mr. Spadehead, and you're going to look for this thing.
Look for a big, thick refrigerator looking motherfucker.
Yeah, that's flying around.
All right. So Robert Cockrell, he found this other encounter that happened shortly after his own sighting. And this one happened in the town of Morganton, West Virginia, which is where the University of West Virginia is located. And it's about 20 miles north of Grafton. And like I said, this person reported seeing a very similar creature. But what's interesting is this sighting occurred near a river that was called and I'm probably going to butcher this, but I'm going to give it my best go, the Monongahela River, spelled Monogahela.
You just got to say it with confidence. It doesn't matter if you say it wrong, as long as you sound like you know what you're saying when you say it.
I really disagree with that, but we're going to move on.
Shashashagnigan River.
Monongahela River.
Monongahela River. You just got to sound confident.
About this river is it flows into the Tigert River, which we talked about earlier, which is the river next to where the initial sighting of the Grafton Monster happened.
The Tigert Yogurt
River. Both of these rivers eventually flow into the Ohio River, which we talk about all the time on this show, of course, associated with bringing it back around, the Mothman sightings.
And just to throw in another weird one, because you know how I like to talk about Edidorpa whenever I get an opportunity to. Let me look up this picture real quick. Sorry, everybody, I only have one screen. That's not how you spell Edidorpa. But, okay, so anyways, there's these, let's see, Tidorphi. Okay, so the main person that he follows around that takes him into the underground in Edidorpa, right, is this humanoid, white, lanky creature. I'll just show you a picture of it for anybody that wants to see what this thing looks like. And also, this access to this tunnel point is accessible off of the Ohio River, supposedly, according to the book. But again, look at this guy and look at the correlations between like the Grafton Monster and tell me this guy doesn't look at least relatively similar, but in a scrawnier version.
Well, he doesn't look like a refrigerator at all, so I'm calling bullshit.
But talking about these white humanoids and connecting it with the Ohio River, all of that type of shit, just throwing a different spin on this
see
thing.
Where you're going with that.
I mean, talking about underground dwelling beings, gonna flip this to a totally different spectrum. You're talking about these all white beings that almost look like they don't have faces, things like that. I mean, it starts getting into this weird underground lore. And like I said, this story connects in with the Ohio River and talks about there's an access point in the Ohio River that gets into this cave system that there's these different creatures and shit in. So, I mean, I don't know, weird old occult books that seem like they have some weird random facts scattered through them. And I don't know, possibly a connection, possibly not a connection, but I had to point it out regardless.
Well, kind of piggybacking off of that, and I think this is a really cool theory, Robert Cockrell kind of theorized that whatever this creature was was using these like local river systems to travel. And that's why it was seen, in Grafton near the river. That's why it was seen in Morganton near the river. So I think that's a really cool theory. And we're going to come back around to that in a moment.
The only thing that throws this one off is the size. Like, you're trying to come up with like theories on how this thing could possibly move around, travel, where it came from. And it's just like, this thing is described as a lot bigger than like the average cryptid. So it's like, the visual appearance, of course, kind of maybe goes with the whole like underground dweller possibility, but the size is just like, holy crap, how would he get through there? But on the flip side, we talk about all of these people that do these like cave dwelling, or they go underground, they do like, spelunking, all that shit. And they talk about these giant rocks that are like in the way that they think that they could lead to bigger passages. So, maybe there are things like this down there, and these are those things that are able to move those boulders, and they purposely have them in the way so that people don't find which caverns they go down. I mean, like I said, if you're spelunking and you find a giant fucking rock, you can't get equipment down there to move it. But if you're a creature that has the strength to move it, then you're probably the only thing that's going to have the possibility of going down that cavern or that access point.
I mean, it's impossible to disprove that. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, if you are some large subterranean creature and you're using these waterways to kind of traverse the outside world, I mean, that could definitely be possible, I think.
I mean, it leads in both ways, too. I mean, depending on how big these rivers are at certain points, I mean, there could be access points into caves, from some of the edges of these rivers that led into bigger points. So, I mean, talking about the possibility of, staying near rivers and also staying underground using both access points intermittently.
Yeah, definitely possible. All right, guys, we got to take another break. We'll be right back. And now we're getting back to the bazaar. All right. So I thought this was kind of interesting when I was doing the research. Robert Cockrell actually contacted Gray Barker, which we've talked about on the show several times. He's a controversial author / ufologist. And he was born in Rifle, West Virginia, which is a town that's near Flatwoods. It's in Braxton County. And this guy was super duper prominent in early 1960s ufology, and what he's probably best known for is popularizing the concept of the Men in Black. He's one of the main figures in the Men in Black lore.
Him and Keel are probably the main two, right?
Yeah, him and Keel, they're kind of the two main figures.
Dude, I want to just total side tangent, but I want to try, I don't know how to look up this information, but remember when we were talking earlier about these other things that kind of fit the Men in Black motif, like the the stuff that goes with Sasquatch stuff, where people see this guy that's in a suit, and then the lumberjack looking guy that Timothy Renner was talking about, and then talking about in England how they're showing up in jaguars and stuff. I don't know how you'd look up that information, dude, but I really just I want to find an episode on this whole Men in Black archetype, not just Men in Black, but the archetype of it being seen in other variations, because I feel like there's a lot more to it. It's just hard to connect the dots, because how do you look that up? Weird encounter with two guys after a big encounter, it's hard to look up.
That's almost something you just have to organically come across in doing research about something else, because every time I found a weird kind of tangentially Men in Black type thing, it's been just by happenstance and looking into something else.
Maybe that's part of the motif of it, that they want to keep one archetype per phenomenon so that people don't realize that all the phenomenons are all linked, it's all the same groups dealing with it, but they want to mentally separate it for people. If people start reporting Men in Black encounters with Sasquatch, or Men in Black encounters with whatever, then people are going to start connecting all the phenomenon and start realizing what's going on. But if they keep everything somewhat scattered, then it looks like it's all different things, and again, people can't connect the dots if you don't know what you're fucking looking for in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, if we can't even find it with the internet, how are people even 20, 30 years ago supposed to find this information?
Or even just somebody reports the initial report and then they have this weird thing that happens after. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of people that report the initial report and then they may not report stuff that comes afterwards because of the scrutiny they got from the initial report. So, I mean, there could be, again, a lot more of this that just never got reported because, after already getting scrutinized for the initial account, then these people come and start doing weird shit. They're not trying to dip back into that again.
Yeah, definitely possible. All right, so I'm going to try to kind of breeze through the rest of these thoughts and theories. We've gone on a lot of tangents and gone a little late tonight, but anyway, so Gray Barker, he actually came to Grafton and he met with Robert Cockrell, and they even like visited the scene of the sighting together. And I thought this was kind of interesting. Barker theorized that the Grafton Monster could have been, quote, an alien visitor from another planet or an interdimensional traveler. So that kind of hits on a lot of things we've already talked about on the show. And this I thought was kind of cool. He suggested that the like low whistling sound that Cockrell reported, and he said like kind of followed them around, could have been emanating from the creature's spacecraft. And it was just like out of sight from when he saw the creature next to the road. So I thought that was kind of cool. And I also discovered that around this same time in the same area, there was a lot of UFO sightings reported. So I think that kind of lends credence to this theory that it could have been some sort of, you know, extraterrestrial, interdimensional something.
Or, I mean, it could, like I said, it could have even been the craft itself. Or just to make reference to it, because we talk about it on a lot of other episodes, if it is something interdimensional, you know, it not necessarily having the shape that it possesses in its own dimension. You know, like somebody sees it as a flying bathtub, the other person sees it as this humanoid on the side of the road. You know, it seems like the Grafton Monster is one of those ones where it's like, it's hard to like make a solid image of it because the definite shapes of it are kind of described a little bit differently. And the reason behind that could be because it is interdimensional and it doesn't have like a solid definite shape.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of an interesting one, I think, because like if you Google Mothman, you know, all the images of the Mothman pretty much, or, you know, like the renderings of the Mothman pretty much look exactly the same. If you Google image search it, you're getting the same thing. Like the Grafton Monster, there's a lot of variation in people's depictions of this thing. And I think it is because it was kind of nebulous how it was described. You know, it was basically just this big, weird white thing. And even Robert Cockrell, who had, you know, the most infamous sighting, he was kind of vague on what this thing looked like. It was big and white and muscular and didn't seem to have a head, and that's about all we got from it, you know?
Yeah, like, that's what I'm saying, dude. It's like when I first started diving into like cryptids, my understanding of the Grafton Monster was that it was like this like amorphous thing, and that's how I was always. Even like with this, like it's still kind of described as like a muscular, like amorphous thing. Like, you know, some images of it are like almost like a blob looking thing that has like arms coming out of it. And other ones are like, you know, this little figure I have where it's like this definite muscular, white-headed, almost like ghostly looking thing. Like, I don't know. It's one of those weird things that I feel like if anything could fall into like the interdimensional possibility, like this is probably one of those like key points just because it was something weird, but again, people just had a hard time really describing what they saw. Or on the other flip side of it, maybe it's because of the fact that, like we talk about all the time in the show, that people need something to relate something to. So if you see something that's just nothing is relatable to it, it's like, how do you describe it? And then it just becomes this thing that becomes indescribable because you didn't have something to use as a point of reference to try to describe it.
Unless you describe it as a refrigerator.
Yeah, a refrigerator or a fucking polar bear.
So anyway, in recent years, the town of Grafton has like really embraced this legend. And it's become a popular destination for cryptid enthusiasts. You know, a lot of people who are hitting like the West Virginia cryptid highway, if you will. This I thought was hilarious. It's one of my favorite aspects of this story. So in 2018, a large sign depicting the Grafton Monster was put up on Riverside Drive, like next to where the initial sighting was. However, this sign/billboard, whatever you want to call it, it soon went missing. And it was initially discovered that the sign was stolen by a West Virginia University student who was displaying it in his dorm room, which is the most drunk college kid thing I've ever heard.
That is fucking awesome. That's like on the level of like the people that would. Well, do you have Big Boys in your state? I don't know how far out that goes. Restaurant?
I mean, I've seen some Big Boys, but no, we don't have the restaurant.
So Big Boy, the restaurant, at least in Michigan, they have this giant like Big Boy fucking statue they put out front.
Yeah.
And it's just, they would always go fucking missing. People would steal them. That's like that level of hijinks of like, how did you fucking accomplish that? Like the shit where people like take apart the professor's car and like put it together inside the building or like up on the roof. Like, how do you just steal a fucking sign and nobody sees this happen?
Well, I'll tell you how you do it. So I went to North Carolina State University. Our mascot is the Wolf Pack. So like our bus system was called the Wolf Line. And one time, me and my roommates, this was like in the middle of the day on like a Tuesday, we were driving to Bojangles to get lunch. And like one of the wolf line signs was like loose on the side of the road. So at a red light, I jump out with my pocket knife and like cut this sign. It was like holding on with zip ties, and I like cut the wolf line sign off the pole. And we had like the wolf line sign in our living room for a long time. So like, this makes perfect sense to me because I pretty much did the same thing, just not as cool. So,
well, I'll throw in another story. This may have happened and may have not happened. It's just an alleged thing. But allegedly, when I was in high school, there was this sign for this side street that was called High Street. And allegedly, maybe somebody climbed up there, I'm not saying who, in the middle of the night and undid it with bolts. And it may have stayed in somebody's smoke corner for a little while. So, you know, I was imagining it as like a bigger sign, but I don't know. If it's a smaller sign, I guess I could see how it's possible. But I don't know why. I was imagining this as like a billboard size sign.
Yeah, I think it was like a pretty good size, like not like a full-on billboard, but like bigger than like a street sign. So anyway, this kid showing a lot of ingenuity, a lot of stick to it. I think they should have let him keep the sign in his dorm room.
Yeah, or at least just, you know, you pay the initial fee. You can keep this one and we'll just get a new one.
Yeah, there you go.
It's already here, anyway. So, you know, it's going to take too much effort to remove it and put it back where it was. So we'll just get a new one printed.
So in June of 2024, the town of Grafton celebrated the 60th anniversary of the monster sighting. And they did this by hosting the inaugural Grafton Monster Festival. And like a lot of, you know, cryptid festivals we go to, they had vendors and guest speakers, and they had like a cryptid cosplay contest. But this also coincided with the opening of the Grafton Monster Museum, which is located at 107 West Main Street. So if you're ever in Grafton, go check that out. Also, the Grafton Monster has been featured on multiple episodes of the Travel Channel series Mountain Monsters. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt. But anyway, allegedly in a season 2 episode.
Sorry, I missed that one. I want to at least get one in.
Allegedly. It featured a cattle farmer who claimed that he captured video footage of the creature attacking his cows. In the same episode, they interviewed this local hunter who said that his trail cam captured a photograph of the creature, and he was able to make a plaster cast of the footprint. I couldn't be bothered to watch this episode because I don't put a whole lot of stock in those type of shows, but it did make me wonder if, you know, some of these more recent sightings that are attributed to this thing could actually be Bigfoot sightings.
I mean, definitely a possibility. I mean, especially the whole like the white-haired Bigfoot thing, like that's been seen. And even on the other side of it, like you have to also consider some more like natural phenomenon that could have happened. So if you're dealing with this big, giant, muscular thing that seems like it's partially humanoid in the woods, you know, mange is definitely a thing. Is it possible that a Sasquatch could get mange, and when it's just skin tone, it maybe looks like a whitish color and super muscular? I mean, definitely a possibility. I mean, this thing could have been a Sasquatch sighting with like mange or some type of like skin disease where maybe it didn't grow hair.
I mean, I don't think you'll even need to go as far as the mange and skin disease aspect. I mean, people talk about all the time in just regular Sasquatch encounters how muscular these things are. And like you said, I mean, white Sasquatches are not, you know, outside of the realm of reports and possibility. So, I mean, I think the initial sighting probably could have, I'm going to say probably was something stranger just because of how weird the sighting was. But like I said, these more recent accounts, I think probably were some sort of Sasquatch type entity.
You know how you deal with the Sasquatch on your property?
Grab his dick and twist it!
That's a good way to keep a Sasquatch off your property. Probably works for a Grafton Monster too. If you ever have any Grafton Monsters trying to steal your cows, or, you know, Mothmans or any cryptids trying to steal any of your livestock, you know, maybe try grabbing his dick and twisting it. That might work.
Yeah, I've got nothing on that one.
They wouldn't be expecting it, man. Like, you know, most people run. They fear these things. You know, if you straight up bluff charge them at them, they're not going to know what to do right off the bat from that. But then on top of the bluff charge, you bluff charge to them to grab their dick and twist it. Dude, like, you're going to catch them offhand, man. These things aren't going to know what to do. That's how you get Sasquatches on the run, bro. They're like, this guy's fucking crazy. We're not stealing any more of his fruit. He just grabbed my schlong and he twisted it, man. Like, what do I even do in this situation?
And the Grafton Monster was also featured in the video game Fallout 76, like many other cryptids we talk about on the show. Thanks, guys. Now we're going to take a commercial break.
Hold
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. But if you don't like hearing the ads, then boy, do we have a solution for you.
You guys can get ad-free and early access to this show and Inquiries of Our Reality on the Open Minds Media Patreon for just $2 a month. That's less than a bag of chips. And it's a great way to support the show and all the hard work behind it. And if you're interested in bonus content, merch store discounts, premium video versions of the show, along with some other perks, then become a member of the OMM family today or give it a try with a 7-day free trial.
The link to that is available down in the show description. And now back to the show. All right, so kind of bringing it back home, we're going to try to close out this shit show.
If you can call it that. It's degraded. I apologize. It's all my fault.
I do have a few kind of closing thoughts. So obviously, you longtime listeners, if you're still with us, I don't know why. But anyway, you'll see a lot of similarities between this and like other cryptids and encounters we've discussed on the show. Like a lot of this, apart from the geography, it really reminds me of the Flatwoods Monster encounter, especially like the whistling sound. That was very reminiscent of the craft in the Flatwoods Monster encounter. You know, we talk all the time about things occurring near water, like high strangeness and cryptid sightings and things like that. And this gets back to the idea that this monster or entity, whatever it was traveling along the river systems. We talked a little bit about the multiple state parks and wildlife management areas nearby.
Throw in the quarry too, considering it's Appalachia and everybody knows
we're going to get there in just a second. So before we get there, though, something that I also found in this research is Grafton has like a long history as a railroad community, and like it's still got like a railroad station, and that whole industry is still very vital to this community, which got me thinking about how many times we hear about strange monster sightings around railroad tracks or crossroads or things like that are associated with like liminality and liminal spaces.
I mean, so even some of the areas that have the railroad tracks, it seems like they're usually like the divergent points of stories too. Like we kind of covered with like Middle Way and a lot of that stuff too. Like when you have these good travel points, regardless which way you want to look at it, like stories end up spreading pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, how many times have we talked about weird things and cryptid sightings near railroad tracks? So I thought that was kind of interesting. But this next point was kind of going to be my bring home point. The thing that I kind of latched onto the most and thought was the coolest in all this research. So Grafton is also historically known as a coal mining town. And we talk all the time about how cryptid activity and high strangeness and paranormal activity is kind of associated with disturbing the earth. And in addition to coal mining, you know, we talked about how the initial report happened near a old abandoned rock quarry. And, you know, what disturbs the earth more than like coal mining and quarrying and things like that? And that got me thinking. And, you know, this is something that I'm not claiming that I came up with some earth shattering idea. I'm sure, you know, countless people have said this, but I just never so succinctly put the pieces together in my own head. Like, what is more disturbing of the earth than like coal mining and stuff? And could that be why there's so much high strangeness and cryptid sightings and things like that in Appalachia? Like, I'm not doubting that there isn't some ancient spirits or something like that there, but I mean, I think a lot of this could have been exacerbated just by this is the area of probably the world, definitely the country that has been most disturbed. So
just to throw it in
like
too, the fact
being
that
disturbed, not the people, but no, just like that was kind of my big aha moment that I had putting the research together on this one.
Just to throw in to expand on your thing too, that you were mentioning, you know, we've dived into a lot of stuff with explosives, links to other places, like fucking Jack Parsons is like a whole. So when it comes to like coal mining, part of that too is that you're blowing up certain areas. So it's like, not only do you have this weird mountain range that already has all this weirdness to it, but you're also doing explosions and detonations on that. And for what we've seen with a lot of these old occultists that we've covered on the show, you know, these explosions, these, you know, they're ways that they attempt to open up other places. So even if you're not consciously doing it, you know, if you're blowing up a bunch of TNT in this area that already has, a thin veil or whatever you want to call it. I mean, just to continue on with your theory, I mean, even more so than just disturbing the land, you're causing explosions on top of it, which have their whole other link to the occult and opening portals.
Yeah, so like you said, I think that's kind of my take-home point here is this is an area that I think probably the veil is just inherently thinner. And on top of that, it's an area who has, been disturbed more than pretty much anywhere else. So I think that's kind of a perfect storm for these kind of weird creature sightings that are so associated with this relatively small geographic area. So
just to throw in some more on that too, just for, just maybe a little bit more real world example of things, like for people that maybe just don't get into like the whole possibility of portals, all that kind of shit. If you have these areas that are like coal mining areas, you're constantly like blowing holes into certain areas, you're opening up new caverns, you're doing all this type of stuff. These creatures that we're seeing, they may not be creatures in the aspect that we think they are. They might just be things that have been living in these pockets for whatever reason, and we blow a hole into it and let these things out. It may not be that there's some interdimensional fucking, creature from another realm, but rather that they're things that were here that, something happened a long time. They started creating a pocket where they're living underground, and then we just re-accessed them, and once they got out into the world now, maybe they weren't adapted to live in it anymore. And that's why some of these sightings are very short-lived, was because we let something out, it was out, it died, that was the end of it.
Well, especially something like the Grafton Monster, who, very conceivably could be some weird albino subterranean thing, So, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. And
even Hopkinsville goblins, for example. I mean, all the different caves and everything over there, I'm sure there was mining and everything going over there. Pocket of some small humanoids that are living somewhere, and somebody opened the access hole and they just came out,
Yeah. So no, I think, like I said, that's kind of my, if anybody takes anything away from any of this craziness we've talked about tonight, and I know we've gone on some tangents and kind of gone off the rails, but I thought this was a really interesting idea to think about. Especially in light of a lot of the things we've talked about on the show. And it's definitely something I'm going to keep in mind as we continue to talk more about weirdness and, creature sightings that happen in this area. So that's basically all I've got for tonight. Do you have any kind of go home points before we kind of wrap up, Shayn?
The only thing I really got to say for it is I feel like you did pretty good justice to this one as far as, kind of differentiating the Grafton Monster. I feel like for a lot of people, this is one of those ones that it's just like they don't really have a full view of the story of this thing. I don't feel like a lot of shows have covered it. So I just wanted to point out that, awesome for compiling the information, throwing all the different possible theories on it, and bringing light to the possibility of what the Grafton Monster could be, and also throwing in a different perspective for me, because I've always kind of related it to a cryptid or something like that, and I hadn't really, I knew about the humming and everything, but I hadn't really put too much thought into it. But I hadn't actually caught that other sighting about the lady that had seen it flying. So just a new perspective on it, that it could have been something a little bit more extraterrestrial. So I just want to thank you for bringing some new light and shining a new perspective on the Grafton Monster. Because like I said, I haven't heard about it talked on a podcast in a long time. So I felt like you did just to it.
I appreciate that, man. And, this was a fun one to do. These like old school cryptid ones I really enjoy. They're a lot of fun to put together, and
classic
like we kind of did. Yeah. And like we kind of did with the Flatwoods, it's kind of fun to find, like you said, everybody generally knows the broad strokes of these stories, but to dig, a little bit below the surface and find these kind of details that aren't as prevalent and out there, like the other sightings and the refrigerator explanation and things like that. Like that's what's fun about it to me. Like everybody knows about
that polar bear one's going to have me going for a while. I'm going to be throwing that one on future shows for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody knows about like, weird headless white thing scene, but like it's the stuff that's a little bit below the surface that's fun. So
because it seems like it was a hoax, together. Like it got rationalized, but then you look into the rationalizations and you realize that they're more ridiculous than the possibility of it just being a monster. And then it's like, all right, the newspapers reported it as like a hoax or like nothing ever happened, so most people view it that way. But then you look into it and you're like, all right, this is more ridiculous than somebody just seeing a fucking monster. Like,
yeah. Like I always say, sometimes it takes more faith to believe all these coincidences than that something just legitimately strange happened. So anyway, that's all I got for tonight.
So with that, I guess, If you guys enjoyed today's conversation and you guys want to show some love, we definitely appreciate it if you guys left a review or rating for us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any podcatcher you happen to use. Your continued support is what makes the show possible, and your opinions go a long way to help the show grow and improve. And it's been a hot minute since we've had a review on iTunes. We've had one, of course, on Spotify. We get them all the time, but if somebody wouldn't mind typing out an awesome review for us on iTunes, we would appreciate it. And of course, we'll read it on the show and give you guys a shout out. And if you know anyone who it would enjoy today's episode, don't forget to share it with a friend. Grassroots support from listeners like you guys is exactly how the show grows. So thank you.
And if you want to leave a real shitty review, we'll probably read that one too. That would be fun.
We'll definitely still read that one. We got that one not too long ago where they left a really sweet review, but it was like 1 star. And I was like, hey, if you want to fix that, you can fix that. But they never fixed it. So maybe they intended to leave us a 1-star review, but say something sweet in the process.
We'll read 5-star reviews and 1-star reviews, nothing in the middle. And on that note, Shane, if anybody wants to get up with us for any reason whatsoever, tell them how they can do that.
First and foremost, you guys can email us at bizarreencounters@outlook.com, or you guys can get a hold of us through social media. Instagram and Facebook are the two that we're the most active on, or you guys can also get a hold of us through the submission form, which of course is available at the top of the link tree. And the last way you guys can get a hold of us is through the hotline. You guys can text or call that 24/7, anytime, whatever's easier for you guys. And that number is 313-364-1551. And if you guys happen to miss that, it is available down in the show notes.
And you guys be sure to show some love to our friends and sponsors of the show. We've got our buddies Rick and Hans with I Know Squatch for all your squatchy gear needs. I'm a double I Know Squatching right now. I've got the Skater Squatch t-shirt and the hat. You got a hat on right now?
Yeah, I got on the good old dark camo Whoop hat, and unfortunately I do not have a I Know Squatch shirt on, but I do have a Cryptoteology shirt, so I think we'll get to that one here soon.
We've also got our buddy Dave, aka the Snarly Yow with Snarly Yow Natural Products, and we've got Cryptoteology, our buddy Joe, for all your wearable cryptid needs.
And shirts just like this one that I'm wearing today. And if you guys got some free time, don't forget to go and check out our other awesome friends with affiliate links, Dimension Devices, to get yourself the end-all, be-all, all-in-one paranormal investigating device. And you guys can also check out Sticker Mule if you guys would like to get some stickers, t-shirts, any of that type of stuff printed. And additional discounts are available for those down in the show description if you guys would like to get some more information on that.
And as always, all the shit we've mentioned is in the link tree in the show description.
And just like we tend to do on the show, we always stay bizarre, getting into things such as how you deal with the Sasquatch, such as grabbing his dick and twisting it. So just like us, just like we tend to do, guys, always, always stay bizarre. Bizarre. Bizarre.
A fucking refrigerator?
Grab his dick and twist it!